You know, in politics, a single screenshot can be all it takes to become a weapon. Today, we're going to break down how one leaked message kicked off a massive firestorm. We're talking top government officials, dangerous conspiracy theories, and even an active FBI investigation. This is the story of the Charlie Kirk leak.
And this sentence right here, this is the bombshell that's at the very heart of this story. It's a direct, explosive accusation that really set everything off. So how in the world did we get to this point? Let's dig in and unpack the whole claim.
All right, to really get what's going on, we've got to start with the central accusation itself. Who's making the claim, who is it against, and what is this all really about?
So the story really kicks off in a moment of absolute crisis. After the fictional assassination of conservative commentator Charlie Kirk, a private screenshot suddenly emerges from one of his personal group chats. And this wasn't just any old leak. It was about to be used to fuel a really dangerous narrative.
And right in the middle of all this, you've got Joe Kent. At the time, he held a pretty important government job as a counterterrorism official. He's the guy being accused of taking this private message and leaking it out into the public.
Okay, but to really grasp why this leak was such a big deal, we need to go inside the private group where the message came from in the first place. What exactly was this chat?
Well, according to one of the guys in the chat, Josh Hammer, the group was called Saving Civilization. Kirk apparently created it to be a small think tank, we're talking fewer than 10 people, to try and build unity between what he saw as the four pillars of the West: the US, Israel, Judaism, and Christianity. And this is the text message that's at the center of everything. In what seems to be a moment of just extreme frustration, Charlie Kirk sounds like he's threatening to completely abandon the pro-Israel cause. I mean, you read that cold and it's wow. It's a shocking statement.
Now, for some context, this text was sent right after Kirk lost a huge multi-million-dollar donor. But according to the other people in that chat, this one single message just filled with frustration, well, it's just one tiny piece of a much bigger puzzle. It's missing some really crucial context.
Okay, so check this out. This timeline, provided by the source, adds that context. Just a little over 2 hours after he sent that angry text, Kirk was actually organizing and leading a Zoom call to plan a pro-Israel campus tour. And his very last message in the chat was, "Thank you guys for the Zoom." So this sequence of events suggests his earlier text might have just been a moment of venting, not some permanent change of heart.
Right, so if this was all just a moment of frustration, maybe taken out of context, how did it blow up and become this public weapon? Let's trace the path of that screenshot, from a private chat into the public eye.
So the source lays out a pretty clear path. A guy named Andrew Culver, who is in the chat, admits he gave the screenshot to Joe Kent, someone he thought he could trust. Then Culver says Kent actually suggested that he should make the screenshots public himself, but Culver said no. Then, maybe a week or two later, that same screenshot pops up publicly in the hands of commentator Candace Owens.
And I have to stress, this wasn't just some online drama or Twitter spat. The fallout from this screenshot had serious, and I mean dangerous, real-world consequences for the people involved.
That screenshot was basically thrown like gasoline onto a fire. It was used to fuel this wild conspiracy theory that Jewish people or even Israel were somehow responsible for Kirk's fictional assassination, and that narrative just spread like wildfire online.
And for Josh Hammer, one of the Jewish members of that chat, man, the consequences were terrifying and they were immediate. He was publicly accused of being involved in the assassination. That led to online death threats that were so serious, somebody was actually arrested in Texas. His home address was leaked, and he was forced to get 24/7 police protection for his young family.
But believe it or not, the story gets even crazier. The accusations start to escalate, pointing toward a possible shadow operation running inside the highest levels of U.S. intelligence.
So Josh Hammer claims that right around the time this leak is all happening, he starts getting these warnings from multiple, well-connected sources he has in D.C., and they're telling him to be really careful of the Office of the Director of National Intelligence.
And look, this wasn't some vague warning. Hammer says his contacts told him specifically that Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence, was, quote, running something of a shadow operation out of her office and was involved in pushing certain narratives.
And this is where you have to connect the dots. Joe Kent, the man accused of the leak, was the Director of National Counterterrorism. That means he worked directly under the command of Tulsi Gabbard.
Now, you have to understand the legal stakes here are incredibly high. This information was shared with Kent in the context of an active murder investigation. So according to legal commentary from the source, if a government official in his position were to leak that kind of material to the media, well, that could potentially be a criminal act.
Which brings us right up to today. The source states that the FBI is now actively investigating the former official, Joe Kent, for his alleged role in this entire affair.
So where does that leave us? It's a crazy story that shows how one little, out-of-context screenshot can just explode, create chaos, put lives in danger, and raise some really serious questions about the people in power. It makes you think, right? In this digital world we all live in, when our private conversations can be turned into public weapons in an instant, who really ends up paying the price?